Thank you very much, Dean Lancaster. Thank you for a generous introduction that journalists are not used to. I was in Indonesia very recently, and the fixer that we'd hired, these are people that you hire to make your phone calls and make your arrangements, kept introducing us to people as a crew from CBS News, And after a while, this got under my skin, and I finally pulled him aside and I said, you know, it's PBS News, it's not CBS. He said, oh, I knew it was something to do with BS. So that's usually the kind of expectations we have for the work that we do. Fortunately, we have a very august panel sitting beside me here who in their own rights could engage us for the entire time here. My job today is to be a good traffic cop and let a good conversation flow. I must say on a personal note, however, picking up on what Dean Lancaster says, as someone who grew up in India, you cannot fail to feel the imprint and the legacy of what the Jesuits did there and have done there and continue to do there today. And journalistically, I've been a beneficiary of work with men like Pinto and Maguire in India, Miller in Sri Lanka, Pete Henrio and Lesseps in Zambia. So it's a great privilege for me to be here. I was supposed to be in Haiti a couple of weeks ago, but there was another natural phenomenon in a northern island that kept me on the other side of an ash cloud. And fortunately, on the other side of that, also trapped at this conference at Oxford, was Dr. Paul Farmer. And as you know, Paul Farmer has been pivotal in putting Haiti front and center and keeping it on the front burner along with Presidents Clinton and Bush to keep Haiti from receding from our memory. To keep the momentum going of an outpouring of assistance that's flown from individuals and more than $10 billion that has been pledged by various donors. The key question, according to Dr. Farmer, is whether those pledges will be fulfilled. If we get 50%, he said, we will be able to build back better, which is how President Clinton describes it. But the record is a spotty one. If you look at Hurricane Mitch, perhaps a third of the original pledges were actually fulfilled. Once you get beyond the challenge of getting resources, it's a matter of actually absorbing them and using these resources efficiently, effectively, and transparently. And in Haiti, you saw an almost literal collapse of the government, which was not particularly well equipped prior to the earthquake, the collapse of the UN headquarters as well. The comparison with the Chile earthquake was inevitable because it happened just weeks after the Haitian earthquake. But the comparison may not be apt for a number of reasons. But I hope that we can examine the issue of what Chile might have done after the earlier earthquake in 1960s that might offer insights to Haiti as it starts its own rebuilding. We might also learn what China has done in Sichuan, where from some accounts you'd almost not know that an earthquake leveled the city of Sichuan just 2 years ago. Is there anything that one can learn from there? On our panel today, we have Lieutenant General Ken Keane, one chair removed from me, Deputy Commander of the U.S. Southern Command. I must apologize in advance. If I did their entire biographies, we'd take 45 minutes. I'm going to abbreviate them with apologies in advance. They're in your printed program. General Keane has a diverse range of military experience in practically every theater. An infantry officer with 18 years of airborne status. He commanded a Ranger task force during Desert Storm, but his most extensive and I think relevant experience for us today is in Latin America. In fact, he has a master's degree in Latin American Studies from the University of Florida. General Keane was in the leadership of the U.S. military's massive rescue effort following the earthquake in Haiti. In fact, he was there when it happened. He was one of 22,000 troops that reopened lifelines at the airport first and then at the port. That in turn enabled millions of tons of supplies, relief supplies, to come in, and a key partner in the logistics of distributing this to aid agencies on the ground amid the utter destruction, was in fact private sector companies like UPS, represented here by Dan Brito, president of UPS International. Mr. Brito helped integrate in his career multiple UPS freight forwarding units, acquired and built into one global air and ocean forwarding service. He's a veteran of this company, starting in 1975 when he was still a college student at Loyola University in Chicago, I assume, where he got his business and accounting degrees before an MBA from Keller. He'll tell us about how new technologies were used and are used in the shipping business and were used to help get packages where they needed to get in Haiti. And those places would be places where organizations like Médecins Sans Frontières operate. Dr. Unni Karanakara is the incoming president of the council of this group that in the English-speaking world we call Doctors Without Borders. He has diverse expertise in international health, emergency relief, and epidemic response, working from MSF's Amsterdam office in 15 countries. He has a master's degree in international health from Yale, a doctorate in population dynamics from Johns Hopkins, and he received his medical degree from Kasturba Medical College in Mangalore, India. Dr. Karanakara has talked about military aid as sort of a double-edged sword. Not your term, but mine. And I look forward to hearing your insights. I've in fact visited and stayed in MSF camps in not only Haiti, but also in Darfur and southern Sudan in the very middle of conflict zones. MSF deals, of course, with what Paul Farmer calls the acute stages of the crisis, but in so many ways they have to address the underlying chronic conditions, social and economic. How do we rebuild sustainably and transparently, especially when one of the key underlying chronic conditions is a long-term conflict, such as Afghanistan? We have with us Zalmay Khalilzad, who knows that country as a native and as a U.S. ambassador to it. He was also the U.S. envoy to Iraq, culminating a long public service career that won him distinguished public service medals from 3 U.S. Secretaries of Defense. He's also a prolific writer with a long academic career that includes a PhD from the University of Chicago. And he now heads an international advisory firm, Khalilzad and Associates, and will share with us his ideas about rebuilding in places like Afghanistan, rebuilding for a self-reliant nation that has a thriving private sector.